Hello everyone, today I want to post a follow-up to the last video I uploaded about Aerogel. Recently I have been working on migrating the first Solid application I made to Aerogel. This is Solid Focused, a simple task manager. The first time you use the app you had to choose if you wanted to log in with your Solid account or if you wanted to store the data offline. The idea is that you had a bunch of workspaces with lists, and inside there you had all the tasks. And yeah, it's a very simple task manager as one you may have seen before. You can find the code for this application in this repository, and in particular the Aerogel branch has the rebuild I'm working on. So the functionality is quite similar, but you will notice that the UI has changed. This is because I am rebuilding it from scratch. I am not migrating the same code base, but I haven't started working on the UI yet, so everything is quite bare bones. But something nice about Aerogel is that I can use all the built-in components to start prototyping quickly. So let's get started, very similar to what we did before. And once you have the task, you will notice that it's very similar in the UI as it was before and the functionality. But something new is this cloud icon here. So in the initial version, if you wanted to start using Solid after a while, your only option was to log out, lose all your data or backed it up before, and upload it manually to the new Solid account. And this was a bit of a hassle and not very user friendly. So something I have been doing in my apps since then is that I have started implemented this pattern where you start using the application offline, and whenever you are ready, you can log into your Solid account and everything is synchronized. So let's see how that works. We log into our Solid account, and the first time you will notice it asks you for confirmation to uploading the data to the cloud. I am doing this because sometimes if there is a lot of local data, this can take a while, so it's better to ask the user for confirmation. In our case, because we don't have a lot of data, it was quite quickly, it happened quickly. So let's look at our local pod to see which data we have in there. As you will see, we have this workspace that is a container, and inside we have a task, which is the task we have created. Now, since we are already connected to the cloud, if you create a new task, you will notice that it is synchronized automatically. So if you go to your Solid pod, you will see it will have been created there. However, something interesting about this approach is that if you reload the application, it doesn't connect automatically. This is something that can be configured in the applications I make, but here by default it doesn't auto reconnect. So right now we are working offline. Now the application is working in the same way as it would work without the internet. So if you create a new task, the task is stored properly in the browser. If you reload, is still there. It's persistent. But you will see it doesn't appear in your pod. However, the next time you reconnect, it will synchronize all your data. Now it doesn't ask you for anything because it already has done the initial migration, so everything else can happen in the background. And if you go to your Solid pod, you will see that the task has been uploaded. If you look at the task, you will notice it uses the schema.org ontology, and it uses the basic data from that structure. However, if you complete the task, and we look at the changes here, where is it? This one. You will see it has created a bunch of data. This is happening because it is using a vocabulary that implements a CRDT. This is something you can learn more online, but basically it's an approach to implement offline first applications so that you can sync the data. And you may be wondering if it makes sense to have all this mix of vocabularies, like we are using schema.org, but we are also using something else from this custom vocabulary I have. Something I would suggest that you watch if you haven't is this talk by Tim Berners-Lee, where he explains why it's actually fine to mix vocabularies. The basic idea is that applications should use the data they understand, and the data they don't, it should just be ignored, but it shouldn't be a problem if it's there. So yeah, that's basically mostly what I wanted to show about the application. Let's look at the code a little bit to see how it's possible to achieve this with Aerogel. So if we look at the schema of the task model, here we are declaring the vocabulary we want to use, which is the schema.org, and it's the action. And we have declared here the fields that we have. We are also using one custom vocabulary, which is this for tasks. And what this gives you is the ability to store a completed add date. In schema.org, tasks only have an action status, saying if they are completed or not. But for our application, we want to make it store the exact date. So this is additional information, and that should be fine. We also have this history true flag to enable the CRDT stuff. And you may be wondering how hard it is to implement all of this, all the CRDTs and all this cloud syncing and everything, right? Well, I am glad to say that with Aerogel it's quite easy. Everything you have to do is this. You register a handler in the cloud service, and you tell it which class you are using, in this case this workspace, and which class which individual items it's registering in the type index. In this case, the task, which is the model we just saw. And this is mostly everything that you need. Everything else works out of the box, and even all this UI to reconnect and log out on everything, they are components built in with Aerogel. So it's quite easy to get started prototyping, and I hope more people also find it useful. Now, before I finish, I also wanted to share with you my development workflow. Sometimes I do this. I have the application running locally with a pod in localhost, but something I'm also doing quite often is using this tool called Cypress. Cypress is a tool to write automated tests, and what it does basically is that it goes through the application like a user boot, and it makes sure that everything is working properly. Initially, this may seem only as a testing automation tool, but I am using it a lot for prototyping and for development, because it makes easy setting up the state for some of the things I want to test. So here it's running all the test suites, but let's go to a single one, and if you use this only method, you can tell it to only run a single test instead of the complete suite. So in this case, you can see that this test, the only thing it does is it tests the onboarding, and it sees that you can create a task and everything works properly. Something that is also quite useful is that you can use this pause command. When you do that, the test will stop at that point, and you can do any development or any testing on your own. You can open the DevTools, inspect the network, inspect the elements, the storage, everything the same way you would when you are developing. The application also works, and you can use it normally. So this is quite useful for development, and it's how I do it sometimes. So for example, if we go to this other test that is testing the login using the solid authentication, you can see that it sets up the pod properly, and it also resets it every time before the test runs again. So it's very useful to replicate situations that you are testing. And you can also do like I'm doing here, where you have a bunch of data pre-populated. If we look at the test, these solid specific things are these solid commands that also come out of the box with Aerogel. And actually, you can also use this in Cypress if you are using something else that is not Aerogel, because I have released this as a standalone plugin for Cypress. So if you are using Cypress, it doesn't matter if you are using React or Vue or whatever, you should be able to use this. So check it out if you are interested. So yeah, this allows you to create some tasks in the pod. It also automates the solid login to go through the UI. And it also allows you to do some assertions to see that everything has been working properly. For example, if you want to check out that a Sparkle query has been executed as you expected, you can also use these steps. And finally, the last one I want to show you is one where I create a lot of data, and I make sure that the application works properly as I would want it to work with all the information. In this case, I'm testing the navigation to see that it navigates properly across workspaces and lists. And something nice about that is that if you look at this test, all the data has been created from Cypress using the same models that I'm using in my application code. In this case, the workspace and all the tasks and everything. So it's also very easy to create stubs with fake data that will help you test your application properly and reproduce some scenarios. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to share for today. I hope you find it useful, and as always, I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you.